Welcome back to another edition of Beyond the Backstage Pass. I'm your host, Vince Edwards. You know me from Sound Image Productions and all over Facebook. What do I got? Death by Loadout and the Backstage Pass, two different closed roadie groups. Welcome to join. Hey, tonight it's a beautiful 80 degrees on the set. We're building a new set, actually, for our show.
It's huge, right next to us, man.
Right next to me is a big contributor and a part of the brain trust here in the family. Cal Thomas, how are you, baby?
Great, big dog. How about yourself?
Man, you know, one day at a time, pretty good. I'm excited about the new project. It makes me very happy to see stuff being built.
I know, so much movement.
Yeah, right. And I think that idea you had with the time-lapsing thing was spot on.
Yeah, we'll see how it turns out, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a huge stage, 27 by, 25?
Something like that, sure.
And all, lighted, tons of lighting and the whole caboodle. It's going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see that video when it's finished. What have you been doing this week?
Man, slamming all around right now. 1 minute. Big Bubba didn't have his microphone on.
So, guys, how it happens here is I'm just a talent. I'm the pretty face, obviously. I got all these youngsters around here that do all the hard stuff, and apparently I allowed them to give me a mic pack that was turned off. My bad. Super. Sorry about that. Again, Vince Edwards, Kyle Thomas, happy to see you. So what have you been up to this week, man?
Man, other than building that huge stage over there for our new setup and getting a little involved with exploring other avenues for the shop and making some profit, I guess, is working on some sound vision files, really. The new release came out, I think 3.1.6 we're on now.
An important update.
I mean, really, it's just staying relevant on the software, right? It's one of those things that just slips out if you don't use it over and over, kind of like Smart. So the L Acoustics webinar has been going on. I think 2 days ago they did the release and posted a webinar. They're all live on YouTube. They have a big list. You can go and view them, rewatch them. There's a bunch of really cool people that talk about their different setups as well. I think there's a really cool Romstein one that I just watched.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some really good material. But there's also the Smart stuff as well. They've been posting a bunch of really helpful YouTube videos from beginner, intro kind of classes to more of the advanced features of Smart, which is also helpful. Another program, it's like me, I don't know if anybody else is like this. It's like if you don't constantly use it, you lose it.
You lose it. That's fact.
Or at least you're less efficient. So not only is it something to do, but people are, these companies are making cool shit, and we got to stay up to date with them.
Yeah, and it's all public source, and I couldn't recommend that more, and I'm glad to hear you're doing that.
Yeah, right on, man.
And I think you also did some more training on the SXL this week.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, you
I took a day or two. Yeah. It's been cruising right along. I might have some things in the works for the desk in the next couple of months. So
you were working with Patrick. I always mess his last name up. Eigerman. Great cat. That was nice to see you guys going at it.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah, super cool.
Everybody's doing great. So
yeah, we invite all of our employees to come in and play with the gear and get their skills, keep their skills up, and maybe even build from there. So, and you lead that, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's funny. Everybody comes in kind of like, all right, do I wear a mask? Do we have to be respectful? It's yeah, wear a mask, be respectful.
Yeah.
But be yourself. It's cool. We're still all here, and we're still a family. Be yourself.
It's awkward for a second.
Yeah.
And it's us.
Isn't that funny? It just takes a minute.
Well, there's a lot of different opinions regarding the subject, and we don't get into that. But
No, it's all love.
No, I know what you're saying. I'm saying, and so they don't know what they're walking into sometimes when they've been away for so long.
Yeah, it's a
they
good
come in and they don't know, are we on this side of the idea of what masks mean, or on that side of it, or whatever. And we just err on the side of caution because this is a goddamn business, and we don't want anybody getting sick here. or hurt.
Exactly.
It's not absolutely not allowed.
Stay
No
healthy,
getting hurt
you
here.
know,
So,
don't get hurt.
Yeah, absolute
Make
rule.
the right decisions.
That is not happening.
And keep us safe,
yeah,
and
that's right.
show your face and don't be awkward. You know?
Yeah. So no, it's been working well so far. A little magic, we've been working on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. And I appreciate your help with all that. Today we've, you know how we're always trying to bring in different disciplines. We've had video guys, some of the best in the world. A1s, I think we've had a lighting goof. We had production managers. We bring in different people from different disciplines. I personally have been working with these people for years and years and love them and have some of the most respect for this particular discipline. Staging. They're on a big rock stages. They're there before us. They're there after us.
Throwing decks. First in, last out.
They're usually tough guys. There's a little bit of pirate in them, and I love that because we like to think we're the pirates. Wrong.
Hey, well, I'll say with this company, I've left shit on the deck, and I still get it at the end of the day. When I'm dumb and leave it. So it's a good.
No, it's you know, that's top down stuff, and we got the top guy here tonight. He's not only been in the business for almost 40 years, for a long time. He's worked in such venues as the Warfield, the Shoreline. He's worked with BGP. To you that don't know what that is, that's Bill Graham Presents, one of the godfathers of our scene. He's worked with Bob Barsotti. I'd love to hear about that. I love me some Bob Barsotti. On and on with U2, Aerosmith, big bands. He's our good friend. It's our great pleasure to bring in John Del Rio.
Yeah, good to be here.
Oh, man, so good to see you, big brother. Man. He's a big dog in our family.
I really like what you've done here.
Thank you very much. Really, I appreciate that. You know, we do it because it's a way for us to see our friends. It's a way for us to play with gear. But we're lucky enough to know some long-term guys have been in the game and have interesting stories. And I'm missing them. And it's bringing the friends in, share with our little Facebook groupie thing we do, and provide a little extra content. I got to ask you, how have you been doing?
It's been good. It's been challenging, without a doubt. I mean, just trying to stay busy, trying to do things around the house, and like everybody else. Did a lot of work in my garden, in my backyard.
Great.
And just getting things going back to where I used to have it.
Everybody's garden's going to be immaculate.
Yeah, it's something, you know, you neglect.
Amazing gardens out there.
Especially in this industry, you know what I mean? You neglect it. So, and that's what I did. So I started getting into that.
No, perfect. It's a great way to spend time. What are you planting? What's your favorite? You got something in there that you love?
Know, my girlfriend Judy, she's the one that's got all the know-how, and I got a pretty basic. What I've done is my backyard's pretty much like an old Backstage area, because I used to do. Back in the old days, I used to do ambiance. We used to do backstage compounds for
How
artists.
Appropriate, the green room.
Yeah. Basically that's what it was. So I made my backyard a big, huge green room.
Oh, that's sweet.
And so one half is a garden, the other half's got this little tropical theme to it. And she's the one who's gone in there and kind of like, really motivated me with this pandemic here. Like, what are you doing? Let's get that thing going again, Let's have some barbecues. So that's really what's been... a good woman will always put a good fire under your butt.
No two ways about that. Yeah, mine's the chief, and I love her. And there's certainly...
We both have fallen into the same kind of circumstances in our lives with the women that we're with now, and it's a real blessing, I think.
Absolutely lucky.
Yeah.
My woman does not prefer the term lucky. She prefers that it was progress intelligently planned, and she's not necessarily wrong because
with us, I don't know. It's like fate, or I don't know. It's kind of weird with us. It was just kind of a weird situation that brought us together.
Yeah.
But the one thing is that she's a woman that I've been with and I've known for many, many years, and I can be my absolute complete self, and that can be quite a thing too.
Well, you are a wonderful, wonderful man, and you're a big personality and a tiny bit of a handful, and I love that about you. It's one of my favorite things. In this show, we've had a couple standard questions. One of the big ones, and I love this, is the origin story. How did you get into the game? And I know your route's been a little circuitous, but talk.
Yeah, I'm first generation in this country. My parents came in. We didn't have a big influence. My parents weren't like, big into Dylan or anything like that. I didn't have a big musical influence. And when I was younger, I through one avenue or another, I started working, volunteering at a radio station locally in San Francisco called The Quake. And I used to go up there and I used to answer phones and all that. And periodically I'd get to go to shows, and those were all Bill Graham Presents shows. And one time a guy asked me to get him to a Tom Waits show, and I really didn't care for Tom Waite too much, you know what I mean? So started wandering around, and there was a security guard that was particularly getting hassled that night. And I decided to step in a little bit and give him a hand.
Help out.
And he told me, he goes, you can't do that. You got to go, you know, you want to work here, you got to go talk to those people over there. His name was Steve Block, and we've lost him recently, but I mean, a few years ago. But that's who got me in the direction. I met Brian Auger and Terry Lynch that night, and they started me out as an usher. And, you know, and after doing that, I got my brother involved in it. My brother Rick, you know, his birthday was a couple weeks ago. Happy birthday, Rick. But I ran in this business with my brother for a good 10 years, the first 10 years. We were ushers and security guards in between. And then around 1986 or so, they started forming up Shoreline, and Brian drug a crew over there to be, Brian Auger drug a crew over there to become the operations and parking, and we didn't really know how to make this facility work just off the hand. And to be honest with you, I'm astounded that it's been 30-something years, you know, that building.
It's amazing. Some great shows have been there.
Venue's been down there running. And
Absolutely.
So, but we were down there when it first started, along with a lot of people like Chung Kuo and, you know, Steve McFadden ran the operation.
Good old Steve.
Yeah, so we, you know, and I only had the first season there at Shoreline, but I went on to work. My brother stayed there, and he worked for 9 years, and I went on to do other shows at other places, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Every other venue, and Brian Auger kept me plenty busy doing, you know, the Grateful Dead runs, and I pretty much stayed local. There's a lot of my friends that ended up going into touring and stuff as we started, you know, your career starts developing. And I usually stayed home because I had 2 sons, and, you know, it was easier for me to, you know, keep my local niche going, you know.
Kind of did the regional thing.
Yeah, you know, you got to pay your dues and start all over, you know, as many of our friends will tell you as you go in. And there's a hazing that goes on with that, you know. So not that I was afraid of any of that, mind you, but I had my responsibilities here at home, and I found that it was better for me to stay local. And it's lucky for me, it just turned out well. I mean, it wasn't easy by any chance, but it turned out okay.
Well, yeah, you've landed well. We're going to get into that.
Yeah, you don't plan your career, kind of. It's rock and wobble, and you kind of fit your.
Yeah, it kind of stalks you, and you have to turn around and take up an opportunity.
Yeah.
To go back a little bit, Bill Graham Presents, endlessly fascinating to me. I came in on the tail end of that sucker.
Yeah.
Actually, I remember when the helicopter thing, and that was a sad day.
Yes.
He had a weird ability, his company even had a weird ability. I know he worked there for quite some time. There was a kind of it was almost not a cult. It was a deep, loyal clique. I mean, if you worked at Bill Graham, you were loyal to Bill Graham. This is the thing. This is well known throughout the industry. And Bob Barsotti, who's was kind of in a way a right hand to Bill Graham.
He was absolutely. I'd say Bob and Peter, they were right and left hand guys. I mean, Bill had a very creative side to him, and he was like many other people that are creative. Got other people that were creative as well. Bob Barsotti's been a huge mentor to me in my career, and I always wanted to make Bob proud. If I could make Bob proud, then everybody else be happy. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so that's the thing is, I learned a lot from him, and you know, the thing about this industry, I got to tell you the truth. I got into it, and it was I always thought things would stay the same. I always thought Bill would be running things. I always thought we would be doing the same kind of chores we'd be doing. Everybody keep building this thing of social gathering and peace and love. You know, that's what it was all based on. When I got into this business, they told me, make sure you're having a good time. You know what I mean? It was really something. It started out from the very, very beginning. And I never, like I said from the beginning, I never really got into this business because of music and the bands or anything like that. It was more because of the camaraderie that I had between the people.
There's a brotherhood.
So to speak of your clique that you're saying, it was very much so. There was an initiation that you went through, and you went to work for Bill Graham, and you went as an usher, security, and you worked your way up. And people saw you working, and they would come and ask you to come work in different departments. Yeah. You'd get the chance to go different. And Bill, he did it all. And like my uncle, who was a contractor, God rest his soul, he did everything in-house. He said, nothing's impossible, just difficult. And Bill was of the same school. He didn't have somebody come in and build a Sherpa in the middle of the Golden Gate Park for the Tibetan Freedom Concert. He had his guys do it, you know, with staff and everything else, and his guys directed it. And then he had an absolutely fantastic art department. And for a guy like me, who I have an artistic side to me in drawing and creating things, and also in my construction background because my uncle was a contractor, I found that I had a really nice niche there because I could build things for them, you know, for the pre-thing.
Sure.
And then when I started doing ambiance, what we called ambiance, and now they call it production support. But, you know, that was the thing, is that you had to do everything yourself. You had to figure it out, you know? We had to build lattice walls. We had to make them so they weren't going to fall down. We had to, you know, there was, nowadays you get everything engineered, you know what I mean? And and back then you didn't. You built it safe because you'd want to make sure your sister, your mom would be okay, you know, around it, you know? So that was the school we went to. And the bond you made with that was very much like the military, you know what I mean? My friend Gordon Taylor, he says it a few times, but I've always sworn by it. He's been in the military. I haven't, but I would imagine. We set up communication, we set up lodging, we set up porta-johns, we set up, you know, production offices. We set up all these things, and it's very military-esque, you know what I mean? There's an etiquette that needs to be followed while you're working, and it goes from the stage out to the audience. And so it's a really fascinating thing when you look at this production, and that's what I got to attribute your show to, because there are so many aspects of people when they walk into a venue that they have no idea what was involved. The operation, security, communications, you know, the production people, lighting, sound, video, you know, the riggers. You just go through the myriad of all the people that are involved in it, you know, they would be astounded.
Oh, yeah, it blew their mind.
And that's kind of the reason why I think Bill Graham handled everything so internally, is he was able to control the production cost on his shows.
Logistic wizard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, and a pioneer,
magical.
without a doubt.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And it's very nice that his name gets repeated, you know what I mean? Because I never had the fortune of getting yelled at by Bill, but working with Bob Barsotti was the closest thing. I said that quite often to Bob. I said, working with you is probably the closest thing to working with Bill.
Well, it was pretty damn close.
Yeah, because, you know,
that's 2 degrees
Bob's
of separation.
the vice president, the president of Bill Graham's foundation, and if Peter was alive, he'd probably be the vice president or right along with him. You know, he's one of the people that really wanted to make sure that Bill's memory didn't die. And that's the thing about it. So, you know, and it was this is a very cutthroat business. A lot of people have said that to me, that the sword swings, you know, but the thing was, when you worked with Bill, that swath was coming down, but you were standing behind him. You were pretty safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You weren't in the swath, you know? He had a monopoly. He did things well. He was very strict in the way he did them, but I remember at Shoreline when we opened up that first season, and Bill was up on the lawn, and he would see lights out in the parking lot, and we'd have to go out and make sure that we either got the light turned off during showtime or did something to mask it, and then later on they ended up putting black screen up. He also, the first show, I mean, how many promoters do you know that are out there wiping up the seats on the at Shoreline Amphitheater? And that was Bill Graham, you know? He went out there and he was hands-on. He was nothing he asked you to do that he didn't do himself, and you knew it. You just saw it, you know? And how can you not follow that kind of leadership? And so there's a lot of people that don't remember that. And that kind of kinship, this loyalty, I remember the people that got me into this industry, like Steve Block and Brian Auger and Terry Lynch and those people. And you know, and I remember the Bob Barsotti, that you get to a certain level and people say, you know, you're gonna, you know, and that's another thing. Bob's wife, Susie, she's a huge influence in my life. You know, she one time told me that I was gonna be running a company or doing something like that, and I'm like, yeah, right, you know. But I'm just a gig worker, you know, and that's the thing. Up until about 10 years ago, that's really what I was just a gig worker.
Well, and then I know you transitioned, where I know you most from is you spent some time running the SF division, San Francisco division of Accurate Staging.
Yeah.
And, you know, you made that thing work really well. We've had a lot of interaction with you. Tell me about that. What was that experience like?
It was good. It was very rewarding. I got to tell you the truth. It wasn't doing well when I went to go work for them, and they already had an establishment here in the Bay Area. You know what I mean, and running, but they just had. I don't think they had the right training, and the crew didn't really have the right direction. You know, they needed somebody hands-on. Bobby Schneider hired me there, and you know, Bobby was doing his best to
Metallica
run.
Bobby.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he was running it with Sarah Porter, and they were doing a best they could, you know, with what they had. But I'm a crew guy, you know what I mean? I was always a part of a crew, and I know how to talk to guys, and I know how to get them to do things that you need them to do.
Sure.
So and so that's what I think I brought to the table was I was able to I brought my son in, you know, Kyle,
Yeah.
and I asked him, you know, how I got into this business. I brought in a bunch of my buddies from high school, you know what I mean? So he was all but 22, 23 years old, and I said, hey, who do you got that went to school with you that you're good friends of yours, you know, you can vouch for them? And he got me a bunch of good workers that came to work for me. I had 8 workers. And then Bobby and management down in LA had their falling out along with Sarah. And then they asked me to take over the running the company. And I knew very little on what to do. All I knew was how to do gigs, you know? So they ran the office basically out of Los Angeles. I had my ex-wife Kelly helping me out with you know, some of the office stuff for the first couple of years while we got established.
Sure.
But I got to tell you the truth, it was the camaraderie and the people that I knew in this industry that had respect for me and I had respect for them that really was the key to my success. There were people that like Steve McFadden would only get a stage every once in a while.
Sure.
But the thing was, when people coming into town would call a guy like Steve,
That's right.
he'd say, get a hold of Johnny, you know what I mean? So I was very fortunate with that. And I treat everybody that I do these gigs with like I owe them something, you know what I mean? Which is, I owe them a good job, you know what I mean? And I try to take some respect. I don't care what the event is. I really take a lot of pride in seeing it through at the end. For the longest time, I didn't want to get into staging, you know what I mean? Because I was handling operations and production part of it, you know, and I really found a lot of interest in that. And I had my, you know, gig family, and I was doing these certain things. And I thought, you know, isn't that kind of limiting me by doing staging? But then I didn't realize that when I started doing staging, I'm actually doing all the gigs. You know what I mean? But yes, my job is limited at the venue, and that was the thing. It's something that I've been thinking of this recently. When I started working at Bill Graham Presents, they needed you to do something, and I don't care whether they needed you at the front of the stage. They grabbed you.
That's right.
You know what I mean? You worked all over, and if you were a stagehand standing there and they had a problem, they'd ask you to jump in. And so we found that often, and I loved that. And then when I got into staging, I said, well, I'm only doing one thing at the gig now, where I could be potentially doing 3 or 4 different things. Because many times I would go to these like mountain air shows, you know, and I got a guy like Nigel James who really saw what I was doing up at Bob Barsotti's ranch. And I would do that every year for 2 weeks out of the year. And I'd ride Bill Graham's old Yamaha motorcycle up on Bob's ranch and get my training up there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I considered it. I was 2 weeks up there, and I was doing everything from working on the highway, getting the parking structure going, fencing going up for the campgrounds, bringing in 5,000 to 6,000 campers, you know, for a 3-day festival. You know what I mean? And all I did was the operations on the outside of that. And Bob started me doing this, and along with Brian Auger, mind you, just each little department and learning how to do each little thing. And then, you know, Brian ended up not going up there anymore doing that event. And Bob eventually asked me to start taking on more and more. And I'd bring guys up there to work with me. And it grew, you know. And so Nigel would take me at a show like Laguna Seca Raceway, or, you know, at more Mountain Air. And I'd work the ambiance to get all the tents and getting all the dressing rooms and doing all that all the way to gig. And then when I worked gig, he'd have me working as a liaison between the stage and, you know, the artist, or, you know, or the production, just doing operations basically.
Sure.
So, and that was really, really cool because I didn't really party like a lot of my friends did. As soon as gig started, man, there was like, you know, party on. They were at a campsite, you know, on those kind of jobs. So, and me, I just keep kind of working. It was kind of fun,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. That's where we create a lot of value, is be able to do all positions. Now,
Yeah,
we
you
came
know-
up in a time, right? Remember, I don't give a hell what it was back in the day when me and my brother would tour. We ran the whole. We put up the band. Half the time we did sound check. I was stage manager, monitors.
Sure.
He was front of house. We collected the money.
Sure.
The old days, you threw the merch out on the table. You had like one of
Right.
the band's girlfriend, selling, whatever it was.
You tell
As
people
you
now,
went up
they kind
through
of
the
laugh
system.
at you the way it was.
Yeah, well, we're in a world of specialists now. So I go to the doctor and I say, I've got this thing going right here. He sends me to an arm, leg, and chest doctor. It's
Right,
amazing.
right.
My doctor is just a gateway to others. It's a specialized society now. So you do this and you
Now
do
the
that.
doctor's just a really expensive lawyer.
He's an expensive gatekeeper, really. You know what I mean? Like he's like, okay, you need to go to the eye guy for that and this and
Right.
all the time. My doctor's notorious for that. I know that. So you got Accurate up and running. It was kicking like a wild horse last time I checked in, and then you shipped out and you went over to Joe's place at Gallagher Staging.
Yeah, I think that I just reached my full potential at Accurate Staging. I think that they only wanted to grow so much, and I really feel like staging is a particular niche in the Bay Area that needs to be serviced. I believe that we provide a service that is absolutely necessary. You know what I mean? There's a lot of support we do on the big shows, and I just think that was a very, very important thing. So when I went to go look, it wasn't hard to go look far. You know what I mean? Joe Gallagher and Joey Gallagher have been absolutely the best, and I got to tell you, I'm really, really, really excited about working with them. I have seen nothing but great things working with them. They are the notch above. You know what I mean? And what's kind of it's kind of overwhelming in a way because you gotta prepare yourself because you got to step up. I got to step up my game now. You know what I mean with these guys.
You got that. You can bring it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm glad you feel that way.
Is there any challenges that we're unaware of? In the audio business and lighting, for example, they break down a lot. Lights, you always bring extra lights. I don't always have to bring extra,
More lights for the moth.
Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of a thing. Any special challenges that we should know about or probably would surprise us to know about in the staging business?
A lot of people, they don't realize what they're, when you're going into the big arenas and all that, and you're dealing with the big companies like Live Nation, and Golden Voice and Other Planet and all them, they know what they're getting. And it's very, very easy to work with them because they know what it's going to take to get to that end product. It's the clients that need to be nurtured through this business that a lot of people they don't aware. I have to design a lot of stages, as well as my colleagues. They come to us with a conception of what they want to create, and we have to make that a reality.
Napkin drawing is like
they're a little bit better than napkin drawing sometimes, but we do get a few of those on the bar table. But the thing is that you've got to take this idea and come to fruition with it, and it's got to be safe.
Yeah.
So we've done some pretty wild things, and I was always impressed with that aspect of the industry. Because coming from a construction background, it was very, very easy for me to go into this decking and trussing and all this that I'm involved with. We deal with the same kind of issues, ballast and weights. We deal with in construction. We deal with every type of measurement of deck you could use. I already knew. I knew all the dimensions.
Yeah.
So it was very easy for me. And then I did a lot of estimating too in my earlier years when I was doing construction. So it helped a lot to be able to, because we rent by the square footage basically, or lineal footage. When it comes to staging. So a lot of people are not aware of that either. That when you're getting a deck, typically they come with the understructure, and then the accessories that go with it, the skirting and the stairs and everything else, are added on as you go. But for the basic part, that deck is charged by the square foot.
No kidding.
And that's how we base our industry on. So.
Very
It's been something that's over the last few years, over the last 10 years that I've been involved in staging, has gone up, and it's taken a little while for that to happen. And I'm kind of proud that we kind of pushed that in the Bay Area because let's face it, the square footage around here we live in the most expensive
Milk
area.
didn't
so,
stay the same.
Right.
Rent certainly hasn't stayed the
so
same.
why should the
Gas,
square footage of
yeah,
a deck,
I'm
you
with
know?
you.
So
No, you're not
that's the
wrong.
thing. So that's helped a lot and helped our industry because it would be more difficult for us to survive.
Absolutely.
With the economics of it all, you know. So.
They're always trying to pinch us a little bit. You know, that's
Sure.
kind of part of the game.
Sure.
But yeah, you definitely need to. That has to happen.
Yeah.
You know, I know you're very fond of the Hawaiian Islands. You have a special love for that place.
Yeah.
You mahalo me every time we email.
Aloha, you too.
Yeah, baby. And I love that side of you. I'm surprised you didn't actually come on with one of your fancy cool ass shirts.
I do. I look at the back. It's got the
See?
got the palm tree on the back. Come on.
What? Right? No, he
This is
lives
not
it
a
and he
cheap
breathes
shirt
it.
either.
He lives it and he breathes it, and there's a reason why. Tell us why. What is the love? Talk to it.
You know, I went there because a friend of mine asked me to come out and work and help him because I had a construction background.
Sure.
And it's a Nuanez family, and I went out there with my buddy Troy, and I went to go do that, and I got hooked. I mean, I've always been an ocean kind of guy anyway, and I'd never been to Hawaii, and here it was. And this was about, I don't know, 14 years ago, 15 years ago. And so I went, and then I made a few friends, and then I ended up finding the little town of Haleiwa. And I had a friend there that hooked me up with a really nice little condo that was right there on the beach. And I told the guy, I said, you know, I don't know how on earth you can afford to buy a place like this, but I'd love to buy a place like this. And it became a dream of mine, you know what I mean, to try to get that happening. And
Well, I've seen the place, and it is remarkable. Like when you say on the beach, you're not kidding.
yeah, 70 John Del Rio steps to the beach.
Exactly.
I like to tell
it's
people.
beautiful. It's fascinating. It's
Yeah, and then
absolutely
I've
gorgeous.
got a whole group of friends out there. There's a little store right around the corner that's the Rainbow Souvenir Shop.
Perfect.
And Patty Ann and her entire family, the Manalos, they run it over there. So, and there's a bunch of little, like my friend Pat that runs the Stordo's Deli. You know what I mean? I've got, and one of our condo owners runs a little pizza joint there called Spaghettini's. You know?
Sounds like
and
a
it's a
little
really
heaven.
neat little town. It's like, gosh, it's hard to describe, but have you ever been to Jerome in Arizona? It's a little quaint little town like that. It's got a bunch of color to it, and you can walk up one side and up down the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the water. I mean, in our little cove right there in Haleiwa, it's just I've been all around the islands, you know, and I've been to all the other islands now over the years, you know. Before I finally decided, it was 3 years ago that I bought this condo, and I was lucky enough to do that. And I got to tell you, man, it's just great snorkeling all year long. Good friend of mine, Mike Oda, who works with Local 16. He goes out there every year now. I've got a few touring buddies and friends of mine, and they hit the place up. And I've got a few artists and stuff that, you know, through
So you do the kind of, what is that?
He's basically telling us we have a place to go vacation now.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
I'm hearing.
basically,
That's
yeah.
ultimately.
Right now is the words
if
that I
we
was
fit
hearing.
into his
It's all about
Look at the
suitcase,
calendar,
we're
like,
going.
what days are
It's
good.
all about mental health in this industry, I believe, you know,
Absolutely.
because this industry can drain you. It's very much like a drug, you know what I mean? There's high adrenaline and there's really big lows that come in it, you know?
That's true.
And you got to find your way to get your mental health. And for Hawaii, that's what it really is to me. It's my mental health. And it's an easier way to live. And
Well, it's fascinating some of your programs you got going, set up in that.
Do you do I don't know, it's not bed and breakfast. What is it, Airbnb?
I used to do the Airbnb VRBO thing, but I don't do that anymore at this point. Hawaii's going through a transition right now, especially Oahu, and they're limiting the short-term rentals, you know what I mean?
Oh.
So I try to not rent the condo to anybody. I just let people stay there. How's that one for you? You know, I work out a deal with them or whatever they want to do, but to be honest with you, that's my investment. That's my property, and it's there for people to go enjoy. And, you know, that's what's been going on lately the last year or 2 years. I haven't really rented it a whole lot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got a few people that hit me up, and I've let them stay there, and it's cutting down on my maintenance costs.
Sure.
And it's cutting down on a lot of other things. And
But it really is a little slice of heaven. It's a beautiful place, and
yeah,
you gotta love owning that stuff.
yeah. It's on the ground floor, so you walk in the front door, you walk out the back door,
Into the ocean,
and it's right there. You got a nice beach.
palm trees. And
Yeah, and on
whatnot.
a crowded June day, you'll maybe find, on the weekends, you'll find, 50, 60 people out there. But on the weekday, you'll find maybe 6, 10 people on the beach.
Yeah, it
It's really,
sounds-
really.
Sounds kind of perfect.
And turtles out in the water every day.
That's insane.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
listen,
It's actually Vince's favorite animal. If
Is that the
everybody
turtle?
wants
I really love turtles.
turtle.
Is that
Yeah.
right?
Fucking
Yeah.
talking about I like turtles.
That's a good one.
I'm gonna smack you around after the show. I feel it. We're in a crazy time. It's in a lot of ways. I don't even think I have to explain. And work's upside down, and some other things. What do you, in your mind, in your many, many years in the business, from what you're seeing from your backyard, what do you think the future holds?
I don't know, but it's going to be different. I know that. It's. I've been of the school to just let it happen, and I've been kind of trying to be patient about what's happening, and I've been fortunate that I've got other things that are bringing me in enough funds to keep myself afloat. But I got to tell you that it's good. I think that like anything that we've ever done, it's going to be a learning process as we go through it. And our industry in particular, as like movie theaters and a lot of other TV commercials and music, they're all in line. And I think there's going to be a protocol that's set up, and it's going to be a learning curve. I really think it's going to be a learning curve. There's a whole bunch of new businesses that are evolving, that are in the disinfecting and cleaning and getting things ready, and there's a lot of new creative ideas. I love San Francisco's concept of the little circles that they have in the parks, and I've seen that. It works quite well, and so it really comes down to common sense, and I just don't know. Our industry is just so intimate. You don't put a speaker up on top of a stage without a couple of buddies there next to you.
That's right.
It's kind of funny because this industry kind of teaches you when you get into it that, you can go through life on your own if you want to, but it's going to be lonely and it's a little tougher. You know what I mean? It's always better to have a crew with you. You know what I mean?
Teach you the crew, the brotherhood.
I just got to tell you, man, you're just a lot better off with a bunch of people around you and letting things happen that way. So that's the thing. It's our industry is so intimate like that I feel like there's going to have to be some sets of protocol that whether it be masks and gloves and constant cleaning and. But how do you do the audience?
There's a tricky part, maybe. Yeah. You're right. That's the tricky part, controlling that space.
Hey, man, if they need a bigger video screen, I've got the structure to build it. You know what I mean?
No two ways about it.
They need a bigger stage. I've got the stage.
We call you for the stage.
Yeah, we can
call
make it
John,
taller and
John
bigger.
from LSV for the video screen. We'll
John
bring
Rigby,
the
he'll take care of
amplifiers
it.
and the lights, and we have a big ass rock show.
Yeah.
It's going to probably take place sometime in the future. I don't have dates and times, unfortunately. I wish I did, but it's going to probably be outdoors with masks first. Right. That would probably be the first.
I'm putting this out there, but I really think that a good buddy of mine told me that, and he's not even in the industry, but he came up and he says, maybe we should just do it in the round, do a big circle circle stage in the middle of and have a bunch of cars everywhere around it, because then you get a big audience.
You're talking with the cars, because I was thinking because theater in the round or 360 concerts.
Yeah, well, the whole concept of the round is a lot better. They take way more.
It's rough though. It's really a rough.
It's a hard production
thing to pull off.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah, to properly.
Right.
And it can be done. I've done it. I've been, but not a big fan.
Right.
Def Leppard had some success with it. I saw an odd one here, and I noticed a friend we got coming on here in a second. Neil Diamond pulled that off really well.
Right. Well, you're not going to do. It's not going to go off very easily with multiple acts. We all know that.
Yeah, that's a.
But you know
that's
what I
a
mean.
bridge
Nonetheless,
too far.
if you want to do one act, that's probably not a bad setup. You can probably get away with it. You know what I mean?
Usually we'd end the interview here, but we have one more special thing to talk about, and to do that, we want to bring out a good friend of the show. Come on in here. We've got a gentleman. His name is Robert Powers. He is a badass, folks. He's the head rigger over at Chase Center in San Francisco, which is a giant venue. I think the Cal Warriors play there too, as well as we did Elton John there, and Bob, yeah. Regardless, he's a great guy. Yeah, if it's a good show, it's usually happening there. He's toured forever with Arcade Fire, John Mayer, Mumford & Sons, Janet Jackson, and just name a few. Metallica, Maroon 5, Ozzy was out on the Ozfest. I was just talking to Greg Price about him yesterday, and they got a special message and they want to talk about it. Guys, welcome Bob. Thank you for being here, my brother. Super good to see you. I know that I noticed, as you know, I have a Facebook presence and I'm all over that. And my brother, yourself, and my good friend John got together over a recent tragedy, I think, was what spurred. But I'd like to hear from you. Could you tell me, you made a Facebook page, and we'll talk about that in a second.
A lot of people may not know a little bit about my background, but 4.5 years ago, I lost my son, Kyle, who started in this staging with me, and he took his own life. And it was after we had done, like 14, 16 days of Dreamforce, Salesforce in there in San Francisco. And
big
he'd been working his butt off, you know what I mean? In fact, he was doing a Steve McFadden stage the next day. And he chose to make a permanent decision over a temporary situation,
That's right.
And then so since that's happened, I've had a pretty rough road, and a lot of people wonder how you get through something like that. And I got to tell you, you get by with a little help from your friends and your family. If it wasn't for my friends and my family, I wouldn't be this type of person I'm in right now. So with that being said, I've had a few experiences over the last few years, where people in the industry have reached out to me over, situations that are happening with them personally, or other people that have happened. And then, unfortunately, we've lost a few stagehands locally, even like 3 or 4 of them in 2019.
Yeah.
And so Bob and I, we'd seen each other there, and we'd struck up a conversation, and we'd it kind of organically went on. I'd see him at Chase Arena, and hey Bob, now he'd be up in the grid, and I'd go up there, and it's a perfect time to catch him because he's right in his little zone. You know what I mean? You could really, connect with him. And then, so we're at the Warfield recent. It was about a good month or 2 ago.
A place he also works at.
Yep. And he said, let's start talking about this thing. And we both knew that social media was the way to reach out to people. You know what I mean? And so from there, we struck up that initial conversation. And Gordon Taylor and Doug Taylor, they're both also administrators with this page. And I got Gordon to come over and start building the group page, and then talked to Bob and got his input on it. Got a hold of your brother George, because I don't know, there's a lot of, George just reaches out to people.
He's got a very deep Rolodex, yeah.
Constantly reaching out to people. And even Bob himself, he's constantly reaching out to people. So we have this one commonality that we do reach out to people, you know what I mean? And we've been this force together that it turns out now.
Yeah.
We never, I don't know, I never would have thought of it that way, but it turned out that way. And it's been about a week now, and we've got some really positive response. And
well, let's discuss Robert, can you tell us what it is we're talking about beyond the issue of helping fellow brothers in the industry and sisters that may be having some rough times in this crazy environment we're in right now? What did you create?
So
what is the resource?
There's a page on Facebook called Loving Hands for Stagehands.
Okay.
And that page is designed for entertainment technicians to have a resource if they have survived a suicide, B, if they are personally having experiences that are making them even think about that subject, but C, most importantly, through the group, to provide resources to be a preventative measure. Through our shared experience, we've all come to see that, granted, we're not licensed, trained therapists or professionals in this industry, but there are a lot of circumstances that could be avoided and prevented. And if the conversation had happened, and if the coping mechanisms and practices were made available. So what we've just started is the beginning of a carpenter and a rigger and a sound guy and a lighting guy and a stagehand's attempt to create a community where this conversation can take place and we can share resources with each other.
That sounds amazing. How's the response? So it's been up about 8 or 9 days, I think, if I've been following it. And from what I've seen, it's done well. Talk to me about that. You getting a response?
Yeah, well, the thing is, we're trying to cater it mostly just to people in the entertainment industry. You know, we understand that there's a lot of people out there that shared this common problem. But the thing that brought Bob and I together on this was because we had lost a few of our friends to this, and they've chosen the permanent solution to a temporary problem. And the thing that I thought that we could bring to this, first and foremost, that you'd see 5 guys up there, and just from our experience, we know how to handle the ups and downs of the gig life, you know?
That's right.
All of us bring a little something special to the table. So with that being said, you know, we found ourselves in a very precarious kind of, area where we're just starting this up, and our intentions are meant well, but we want to guide it and direct it in the right direction that we want to. After all, this site, in a way, this group absolutely represents myself, Bob, George, Doug, and Gordon, you know, and we're putting our names out there, and we want this to be an expression of what we want to show people. The one thing Bob brought up right there is coping mechanisms, and that's the one thing that I believe my son would have benefited from, was having a better coping mechanisms. He was up against the wall. I can only come up in my own head with what had happened, but and the reasons why. But you need to have coping mechanisms. And the other part that Bob brought up was that there's people that survive suicides. You know what I mean? And you want to be an outlet for people who may have lost somebody who's not in the industry, but they might have killed themselves, and they are in the industry. And that's really bumming them, getting them to that point, you know what I mean, where they're thinking those dark thoughts. And we want to be able to be there for them, you know?
That's very kind. It's extremely thoughtful. I understand it's a close subject. I think in my family, my brother's interest comes from a similar place and experiences. And I believe that people that have shared decades in this specific industry and with the specific nature of it, we can kind of relate to each other in a certain way. There's a certain vernacular even.
Yeah.
And so it makes perfect sense. Yes, there's a larger need out there. And for that need, and anybody watching, listen, we want you to be mindful of the good people at the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. If you need to speak with them at any time, you can call 1-800-273-TALK or 8255. They also have a web link just there below. There's nothing wrong with talking, getting it out there, sharing your stuff. Please, people want to help each other for the most part, and you guys are absolutely lovely for stepping to this. This is an issue.
How selfless it is of an intention you really have formed.
It's really something, because I was going to say that Bob and I have known each other for years, and but we never really we never really got together, and we would see each other at gatherings, you know what I mean? And we would pass each other at gigs, but he was busy working, I was busy working. I knew his name, he knew my name. We weren't these buddy kind of guys, you know what I mean? We had a mutual respect for each other, and it's kind of funny, but I want people to know that, they may not know me, they may not know Bob, they may not know George, you know what I mean? They may not know how to reach out, because you got to think, the new guys that are starting out, all they got is a bunch of other new guys that they're starting out with. You know what I mean? They don't know that they can reach up to some guy that's up there that's been doing it for, a couple decades. You know what I'm saying?
Well, maybe that's
so
the
that's
message
what this
right
avenue
now.
might be.
Yeah.
Is that something for to do?
Speak to the
It's a
old
great way to
Yeah.
humanize it as well. Something that's very masculine
Yeah,
and ego-driven to have, and the ability to have a conversation, I think is.
Yeah, we're talking now almost
so
every
important.
other day. It's like we're in a long-term gig now with each other.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So,
for the first 25 years of our relationship, our communication existed of get your shit out of my way.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
that's so.
Yeah, what are you gonna say?
Bring
You
it to
know?
the stage.
Right.
What are you gonna say?
But Kyle, you bring up a really salient point, and what we're trying to do is make a safe space where a different language can be spoken and some different words can be said that might not be comfortable or even, socially acceptable in other environments. One of those words is suicide.
Yeah.
Sure.
We want to, as appropriately as possible, take the stigma out of that word. We want to create a space where if a person needs to speak about that, they can speak about that. A few of the vernaculars that I'm trying to bring in from the rigging standpoint, we have a unique opportunity as riggers. We play a very unique role, and we get to think about the subject of life safety and risk management in the workplace. So a rigger's mindset is always viewing something from the standpoint of potential harm or threat to a person's life, a coworker's life, which very rapidly makes that person a brother or a sister. You can't be a rigger unless you care about the people who you are hanging that show above.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Yeah.
You won't last long, let me put it to you that way. The people that don't care about the people who they're hanging the show above don't get asked back. So having said that, we're always looking from the standpoint of life safety and then risk management. So assessing a risk, what can we do to reduce a risk, and can we even eliminate that risk? And so I feel like of the five of us, that's the perspective that I bring to this subject, which is what can we as a community, individually but as a community, what can we proactively do, actions? Talking is a big part of it, communicating.
Sure.
But are there other physical actions that I can take or that I can share with you that have been helpful, preventative actions for me?
beneficial.
So for example, we have 6 different threads on the page. It starts with helpful resources. But then we get into the subject of mental health, of course, physical health, spiritual health, financial health, and then relationship health.
Wow.
And this is just a bunch of roadies, to coin another group's term, just a bunch of roadies just trying to address this in ways that words that make sense to us and language that we speak.
Sure.
So by all means, that's not the end all be all of the subject. But we feel that in those 5 categories, if you start talking to people like George does, for example, are you having money issues? How are you feeling about money right now? Health, physical health, what can you do physically moving around that just automatically changes my thinking and my feelings? We're starting to start the conversation, and what we really want is for the folks that are on the page, once they get comfortable, they see what's going on, to start chiming in and speaking up and say, hey, this works for me. This is a habit, a ritual, a practice, a discipline, a behavior that I do that I find is beneficial for my mental health, my emotional health, my physical health, et cetera, that preventatively addresses this issue.
It sounds like you guys have really thought this out, and I'm proud to be friends, proud to be, I'm on the page. I highly recommend it, just as a place to go and put out a good word, and all the reasons that they stated. Please, if this makes sense to you and you want to support a good, righteous thing for the brothers of the entertainment industry, the people that this show is about and for, please go to Loving Hands for Stagehands and check it in. Check it out, see what if it fits for you. It's a great site, and I highly recommend it. I would like to have you guys know that I really appreciate you being here. Young man, you, Mr. Powers, I'd like to have you back because I need the badass roadie in the mix, and we're going to talk about.
I know a bunch of them. I'll give you their numbers.
Yeah. Okay, you're coming back September. I want to say 17th, if you can hang. We'll talk to you. It would be our great pleasure. Thank you so much for coming in, Mr. Del Rio. I love you.
No problem.
Thank you both.
Thank you
I
both
want
for
to
having
let
us.
people. I want to let people know that you got to look for the collateral beauty in things.
That's right.
We're going through some really rough times. You know what I mean? It's something that I've used a lot lately. and having my recovery from having to go after Kyle,
Yeah.
was that there, in everything that happens bad like that, there's something good that comes from it, and you have to look for those things, and those are the gems that are standing in the wall that you can grab on to pull you out of the abyss. And it's those little things, And our site, the last thing I want to finish on is that, we're not about how many posts are on there. It's about the quality of the post. I think Bob was the one who phrased that, and I want to give him compute credit on that,
Yeah.
He planted a seed in my head, you know what I mean, to get this thing going. And it's really developed into something, and it's the best way I can think to honor the people that we have in this industry currently and the ones that we've lost,
It's a lovely thought, and I agree with you. I would say, as a quick a little aside, and I think we mentioned this before, it's a job as the administrator to control that site, to make sure that the flow of it's the flow, and it's that the content is in the direction that you guys just espoused.
Thank God I'm not doing
your
it all
site,
alone.
compared to my sites, is a little less frivolous. Therefore, it is incumbent upon you to check in on
we
that
have to
thing
be
regularly.
respectful.
And I wish you luck. And if there's anything I can do to help you support that, please let me know.
Are we gonna do the 8-ball thing or what? What's up?
No, I'm sorry, we're already.
I'm not doing an 8-ball.
We're 55. I think I better pull the plug. All right. Lost a few people. Listen, you guys, it was a great pleasure. Bob Powers, John Del Rio, thank you,
love.
gentlemen.
Yeah, man.
Kyle,
Very,
thank
very
you.
much
both.
appreciate it.
Great meeting you both.
I want to do a quick one for my brother. Today is my brother and his son's birthday today. Happy birthday,
right?
Big Daddy. Yeah,
Happy
it's his son.
Right on, George.
Love you, man.
Aloha.
Thank you,
Birthday, George Edwards.
and thank you for letting us. He's the big boss
Alex.
here at Sound Image Productions. George Edwards, we appreciate you, lending us the space, and thank you, of course, to the big dog, Dave Shadone, the CEO of Southern California Sound Image, and all of our bosses. I appreciate you
Absolutely.
I will
very much.
say, can we not forget,
Mikey Brown.
dude, this-
Mikey Brown, the octopus. We have this guy. Now you
This
gotta.
is a great thing you guys are doing.
Thank you. We've got a guy. This used to take a few people, but we got it down to one badass. Mike Brown, he's our audio guy. He runs the RF. He does the switching. He does the cameras. He gathers. He does the IT. I really show up with the beer. Mikey, thank you so much, man. We simply couldn't do it without you. We just simply couldn't. And you do it with such cheer, and we appreciate you very much. Also, the great help from our good friends over at LSV. John Rigney, I love you, baby. Keep posting that crazy shit you put up because you're never wrong. And if you need a big, large screen video, anything, call John Rigney. He's the man. Also, we actually do practice social distance around here, and we've had help from the good people at slowfiber.com. They provide us with masks, all kinds of services related to our drape and our sandbags. This allows the people at our different shops to be able to continue to work and do it in a safe way. So we really appreciate you. Thank you, Slow Fiber. And a little shout out to Gallagher Staging. Thanks for sending your guy and allowing him the time. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Joe. We got love for you. We come here every week. I couldn't do it without my trusty cohort, Kyle Thomas. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Keep bringing
Any
the
day.
information, how these kids out there can keep getting more training, keep their chops up.
You know what?
I love that you brought the smart rig thing today, because that's a thing that some people struggle with, and there's good education out there on that.
just
They can do
stay
it.
busy.
Yeah.
Don't give up on actually staying with this, because I feel like if you don't, like I said, you're gonna have a hard time. A lot of people aren't gonna come back from this COVID incident.
Well, we had a couple people talk to us on the screen here, real quickly, guys. Sorry, Susan Duggan, she got in there,
Susan, that's my
and
baby.
it's our lovely our HR gal, Christina. Christina, you're the best. And I think Pat got a hold of us, Pat Ewing, and Winston Dame. He agreed with you that keeping your chops up is critical. Winston Dame's old pro badass. He does so much. He's gigging at all times. And, well, not right this minute, but usually. And he agreed with you that,
Once we get past the
keep it on the
14-day
training.
quarantine.
Keep your chops up or you lose it. And he's right. So,
Routine. Keep them busy. Consistency makes a man.
absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Hey, next week we got another good show, a big show coming. Sebastian Poe's on. We call him Seb. He works for Dolby Digital. He's kind of a badass. He's worked for everybody from Sound Image, Sound on Stage, Delicate Productions. He's a A1, a badass, and he is a great guest. We are lucky to have him next week, Thursday, 7 p.m. Same bad time.
Tune in.
Same bad channel. Thank you for showing up. Have a great night.